She came to Seoul searching for the truth about her missing brother. Instead, she found herself standing face to face with Kang Min-jae, the man everyone feared. One public slap changed everything.
Who do you think you really are? You don't treat people like that.
Now, as secrets, danger, and hidden betrayals unfold, Adoma must discover whether he is her greatest enemy or the only person who can help her uncover the truth. What would you do if the person you feared most was the only one who could reveal the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more powerful stories filled with mystery, emotion, and unexpected twists. Adoma Mensah stood outside the busy streets of Seoul with a small notebook pressed tightly against her chest. The city moved around her like a river that never stopped flowing. Cars passed quickly. People walked with purpose. Store signs glowed above the streets, and voices from different corners mixed together. To many people, Seoul was a city full of dreams. To Adoma, it was a place holding a secret. She looked down at the notebook in her hands. The cover was old and slightly worn, because she had carried it almost every day since leaving Ghana. Inside were notes written by her older brother, Kwesi. Every page reminded her of the same thing. He had been searching for the truth, and now she was here to finish what he started. Adoma closed the notebook and took a slow breath. "Kwesi, I hope you knew I was going to come," she whispered. The people walking past her did not notice the sadness hidden behind her calm expression. Adoma was good at hiding her pain. She had learned that skill after losing the person who always protected her. Her brother had been more than family. He had been her closest friend, her biggest supporter, and the person who always believed her dreams were possible. When she told him she wanted to become a journalist, many people around her said it was too difficult. Kwesi laughed and told her something different. Someone has to ask the questions people are afraid to answer. Those words stayed with her. Now they were the reason she was standing thousands of miles away from home. Months earlier, Kwesi had traveled to South Korea while investigating a story. He told Adoma he was close to discovering something important. She remembered their final conversation. She remembered the frustration in his voice. She remembered her own anger. "Kwesi, you always do this," she had told him. "You jump into problems without thinking about the people who worry about you." He had been quiet for a moment. Then he replied, "Adoma, if everyone stays silent because they are afraid, who will speak for the people who need help?" At that time, she did not understand. She thought he was being stubborn. She thought he was choosing his work over his family. She ended the call before he could explain more. A few days later, she received the news that changed everything. Kwesi was gone. The official report said there was no reason to suspect anything unusual. But Adoma knew her brother. She knew when something felt wrong. And this felt wrong. That was why she came to Seoul. Not because she believed she could solve everything. Not because she thought she was fearless. She came because she could not live with never knowing the truth. Adoma had spent weeks following every small clue her brother left behind. One name appeared again and again, Kang Min-jae. The name carried weight. People became careful when they mentioned him. Some refused to speak about him at all. Others described him as a powerful man who controlled many parts of Seoul's business world. Adoma did not know what to believe. She had learned one important lesson as a journalist. Stories changed depending on who was telling them. The person one group called a hero could be called a villain by another. She needed facts, not rumors, not fear. Facts. That evening, Adoma attended a charity event at a large hotel in Seoul. She did not attend because she enjoyed fancy gatherings. She actually disliked them. She felt uncomfortable around people who smiled too much while saying too little. She preferred small conversations where people showed who they really were. However, Someone connected to her brother's investigation was attending the event. She needed answers. Adama checked her notes one more time before entering. Her hands felt slightly cold. She looked at them and smiled. "Great," she said quietly. "I crossed the world to find answers, and now my hands decide to become nervous." The small joke made her feel a little better. That was something her brother always loved about her. Even during difficult moments, she found a way to make herself smile. Inside the event hall, people talked in groups. Adama watched carefully. She noticed how people changed their behavior around certain individuals. Then she saw him. Kang Min-jae. He was standing across the room, speaking with several people. Adoma immediately recognized him from her research. She expected someone loud, someone who wanted everyone to know he was powerful. Instead, he was quiet. That surprised her, and he did not need to announce himself. People already noticed him. Adama watched him closely. She wanted to understand the man connected to so many questions. Then something happened. A young employee carrying drinks accidentally bumped into a guest. The employee quickly apologized. "I am sorry. I will clean this immediately." The guest looked annoyed. Before the situation could become worse, Kang Min-jae stepped closer. His voice was calm. "Are you hurt?" The employee looked surprised. "No, sir." "Then take care of yourself first." Adoma blinked. That was not what she expected. She had heard so many negative things about him. But before she could rethink her opinion, another person approached Min-jae and whispered something. His expression changed. The employee who made the mistake suddenly looked afraid again. Adoma noticed the fear. She did not like it. She hated seeing people treated like they were invisible. The employee lowered his head. "I apologize again." Min-jae looked at him. "You made a mistake. Learn from it." His voice was not loud, but the young man still looked nervous. Adama stepped forward before she could stop herself. "Excuse me." Several people turned. Min-jae looked at her. His eyes were calm. "Yes?" Adama walked closer. "You do not have to make someone feel small just because they made a mistake." The people around them became silent. Min-jae studied her. "I believe you misunderstood the situation." "Maybe I did," Adoma replied, "but I know what fear looks like." A few people exchanged surprised looks. Nobody spoke to him that way. Min-jae looked at her carefully. "Who are you?" Someone who noticed a person was uncomfortable and decided to say something. One person near them quietly warned her. "Miss, you should stop." Adoma ignored the warning. She looked at Min-jae. Having influence means you have more responsibility, not permission to forget people. For a moment, neither of them moved. Min-jae was not used to being challenged. Not by employees, not by business partners, not by anyone. Adoma saw the surprise on his face. She also realized everyone was staring. Her heart began beating faster. A small part of her mind screamed that she should walk away. But another part reminded her why she came to Seoul. She came looking for the truth. She did not come to hide. Min-jae spoke. "You always speak this boldly to strangers?" Adoma lifted an eyebrow. "Only when strangers make it easy." For the first time, something almost like amusement appeared on his face. Then it disappeared. "You do not know who you are speaking to." Adoma looked at him. "Maybe that is why I can speak honestly." The room became completely quiet. Then Adoma did something she would later question many times. She slapped him. The sound was not loud, but the reaction was. Everyone froze. Adoma froze too. She had acted before thinking. Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh," she whispered. That was the first time she realized exactly what she had done. A person nearby looked terrified. Someone else stepped forward, but Min-jae raised his hand. Everyone stopped. Adoma expected anger. She expected shouting. She expected consequences. Instead, Min-jae simply looked at her, not with hatred, with surprise. Nobody had ever done this. Nobody had ever looked at him like he was just a person. Not a name, not a reputation. Just a person. Adoma swallowed. I may have reacted too quickly. Min-jae stared at her. That is the first apology I have heard from you. She frowned. And it is also the first honest sentence. Adoma did not know how to answer. Before she could say anything else, someone called his name. Mr. Kang. Min-jae continued looking at her. What is your name? She hesitated. Adoma Mensa. He repeated it quietly. Adoma. She did not know why, but hearing him say her name made her uncomfortable. Not because she was afraid, because she felt like he was trying to understand her. She turned away. I hope you think about what I said. Then she walked away. But as she left the room, she felt something she did not expect. She was not proud. She was not happy. She was worried. Because deep inside, she knew one thing. She had just challenged one of the most powerful people in Seoul. And now, he knew her name. The next morning, Adoma woke up expecting trouble. She checked her phone before getting out of bed. Nothing. No messages. No threats. No angry calls. She almost laughed. Maybe I survived. Then she remembered who she had confronted. Or maybe the problem is waiting until after breakfast. She made coffee and sat near the small window of her apartment. Her thoughts returned to Kwesi. She wished he could see her now. He would probably laugh. You traveled across the world and your first big move was to slap someone. She could almost hear him saying it. She smiled sadly. I know, Kwesi. It was not my smartest plan. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Her smile disappeared. Nobody was supposed to visit. Slowly, she walked toward the door. Who is it? A voice answered. Adoma Mensa. She froze. She did not recognize the voice. Who are you? I am here because Kang Min-jae wants to speak with you. Her heart tightened. She stepped away from the door. I am not interested. The person outside was quiet. Then came the reply. That is exactly what he expected you to say. Adoma frowned. She hated that answer, because it sounded like he knew her. She did not open the door. Tell him I have nothing to say. The person left, but Adoma knew something had changed. Kang Min-jae was no longer just a name in her investigation. He was now part of her story, and she had a feeling he knew more about her brother than he was admitting. The person outside her apartment was gone, but Adoma remained still for several seconds. She looked at the closed door, then she looked around her small apartment. Nothing seemed different. The same chair sat near the table. Her notebook was still beside her laptop. Her brother's old picture was still placed carefully on the shelf. Yet she felt something had changed. Someone knew where she lived. Someone knew she was investigating. Adoma walked back to the table and picked up her notebook. She opened the pages filled with her brother's handwriting. One sentence caught her attention. The people closest to the truth are sometimes the ones hiding it. She had read that line many times, but today it felt different. Was Kwesi talking about Kang Min-jae? Or was he warning her about someone else? Adoma closed the notebook. I came here for answers, she whispered, not to become afraid of questions. She grabbed her coat and left her apartment. If Kang Min-jae wanted to talk, she would choose the location, not him. A small cafe near a busy street became their meeting place. Adoma arrived early. She always arrived early. Her brother used to tease her about it. You act like every meeting is a final exam. And she always replied, being prepared is better than being surprised. Now, as she sat waiting, she wished she could hear him say those words again. A few minutes later, Kang Min-jae entered the cafe. Adoma immediately noticed something unusual. He came alone. No large group of people. No dramatic entrance. Just one person walking toward her table. He sat across from her. You came. Adoma looked at him. You sound surprised. I thought you would refuse. I almost did. A small silence passed. Min-jae looked at her calmly. You have many questions. I have one important question. What is it? What happened to my brother? The question changed the atmosphere instantly. For the first time, Min-jae looked uncomfortable. Not angry, not annoyed, uncomfortable. Adoma noticed. That reaction told her something. He knew. You knew him, she said. Min-jae did not answer immediately. Finally, he nodded. Yes. Adoma felt her chest tighten. After months of searching, she finally found someone who had a connection to Kwesi. But she did not feel relieved. She felt hurt. Why did nobody tell me? Because your brother asked me not to. Adoma leaned forward. My brother disappeared, and you respected his request to stay silent. Her voice became sharper. Min-jae remained quiet. I know how that sounds. No, you do not. Her eyes became emotional, but she refused to look away. You have no idea what it feels like to wait for a phone call that never comes. To wonder if someone you love is alive somewhere, needing help. Min-jae looked down briefly. Adoma noticed the small movement. It was the first time she saw him look like a person carrying a heavy memory, not a powerful businessman, not the man everyone feared, just a person. But she was still angry. Tell me everything. Min-jae looked at her. I cannot tell you everything yet. Adoma laughed softly, but there was no happiness in it. Of course. What does that mean? It means powerful people always have a reason why the truth has to wait. His expression changed slightly. You think I am protecting myself. Should I think something else? Min-jae did not answer. That silence frustrated her more than an argument would have. She stood up. I came here because I wanted answers, not another person giving me pieces of a story. She started walking away. Then Min-jae spoke. Your brother was investigating Chairman Choi Dae-sung. Adoma stopped. She slowly turned around. The name was familiar. She had seen it in her brother's notes. Why? Because he believed Chairman Choi was hiding information about several illegal activities. Adoma walked back to the table. What kind of activities? Things that involved powerful people. People like you? Min-jae looked at her. Maybe. The answer surprised her. She expected denial. Instead, he admitted there were things she did not know. Why help me now? Because someone is trying to stop you from finding the truth. Adoma crossed her arms. And you are different? No. The answer caught her off guard. Min-jae continued. I have made mistakes. She studied him. A person like Kang Min-jae admitting mistakes was unexpected, but Adoma had learned not to trust words alone. How convenient. I knew you would say that. Good. At least you understand something. For a moment, a small smile appeared on his face. It disappeared quickly, but Adoma noticed it. You find this funny? No. It looked like you were smiling. I was surprised. By what? That someone can insult me and still make it sound like a normal conversation. Adoma tried not to smile. She failed slightly. She quickly looked away. Do not think one almost smile changes anything. I did not. Good. The conversation ended without trust, but it also ended without anger. And that was something neither of them expected. Over the next few days, Adoma continued investigating. She visited places connected to her brother's work. She interviewed people who knew him. But something felt different. People who were once willing to speak suddenly became quiet. One shop owner who had helped Kwesi refused to answer any questions. I am sorry, the older man said. I cannot become involved. Did someone threaten you? The man looked away. That was her answer. Later that evening, Adoma returned to her apartment. She noticed her door was slightly open. Her heart immediately began beating faster. She knew she had locked it. Slowly, she pushed the door. The room looked normal at first. Then she noticed her notebook was missing. Her brother's notes. The one thing she protected more than anything. Someone had entered her home. Someone was searching for the same truth she was looking for. Adoma grabbed her phone and stepped back. She wanted to call the police, but she stopped. What if the person behind this had influence everywhere? What if reporting it only made things worse? Then her phone rang. "Unknown number," she answered carefully. "Hello?" A quiet voice responded. "Stop asking questions about your brother." Adoma's grip tightened around the phone. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows you are getting close." The call ended. For a moment, fear entered her mind. Not the kind that made her run. The kind that made her realize the danger was real. She sat down slowly. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, she allowed herself to admit something. She was scared. She missed home. She missed her family. She missed the feeling of knowing exactly where she belonged. A tear rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. "No," she whispered. She opened her brother's old notebook again. The pages were messy because she had carried them everywhere. She touched his handwriting. "You did not give up," she said quietly. "So I will not give up either." The next morning, Kang Min-jae found her before she found him. She was leaving a small bookstore where she had been searching through old newspaper records. He stood across the street. Adoma immediately became cautious. "What do you want?" "You were attacked." Her expression changed. "How do you know?" "I have people watching the situation." She frowned. "There it is again." "What? You say things like that and expect me to feel safe." Min-jae looked at her. "I understand why you do not trust me." "No. You understand why I should not trust you." He accepted the answer. Then he handed her a small envelope. Inside were copies of documents. Adoma looked through them. Her eyes widened. They were connected to her brother's investigation. "Where did you get these?" "Your brother gave them to me." She looked up. "Why?" "Because he believed I could protect them." Adoma became quiet. The information was real. She could feel it. But trusting Min-jae still felt impossible. "You knew he was in danger." His eyes changed. "Yes. And you still let him continue." The question hurt him. She saw it. But she needed the truth. "I tried to stop him." "Did you?" "No." The honesty surprised her. Min-jae looked away. "Your brother believed the truth was more important than his safety." Adoma held the documents tightly. That sounded exactly like Kwesi. It was the same thing he always believed. For a moment, she understood why they connected. But understanding did not mean forgiveness. "I still do not trust you." "I know. And I may never trust you." "I know that too." She studied him. Most people would have become angry. Min-jae did not. He simply accepted her words. That confused her. "Why are you helping me?" His answer was quiet. "Because your brother believed someone needed to finish what he started." Adoma looked at him. The city moved around them. People walked past. Cars passed by. But for a moment, she only focused on his words. She still did not know if Kang Min-jae was someone she could trust. But she knew one thing. He was connected to the truth. And until she discovered what happened to her brother, she could not walk away. Their unwanted alliance had begun. Adoma did not sleep much that night. The documents Min-jae gave her were spread across her table. She had read them several times, searching for something she missed. A name, a date, a clue. Anything that could explain why her brother disappeared. The pages were not complete, but they confirmed one thing. Kwesi had been following Chairman Choi Dae-sung for months. He had collected information about companies connected to him, people who worked closely with him, and unusual transactions that did not make sense. Adoma tapped her pen against the table. "Why did you have to carry this alone, Kwesi?" She wished she could ask him that question. She wished he could answer. Instead, she only had notes and memories. The next morning, Adoma met Kang Min-jae at a quiet restaurant, away from crowded areas. She chose the place because she did not want anyone connected to him deciding where they would meet. When Min-jae arrived, he looked at the empty chair across from her. "You chose the location." "Yes, because you do not trust me." Adoma looked at him. That was not difficult to understand. A small silence followed. Then Min-jae nodded. "Fair enough." She looked surprised. She expected him to argue. "You agree easily. I am learning." "Learning what?" "That arguing with you requires more energy than necessary." Adoma almost smiled. "Almost. That might be the first sensible thing you have said." Min-jae looked at her. "You insult people often, only when they give me reasons." For a moment, his expression softened. Adoma noticed it again. The small changes in his face, the moments when the cold image disappeared. She quickly focused on the documents. "We need to understand what my brother discovered." Min-jae nodded. "Your brother was investigating Chairman Choi's business connections." "Why?" "Because he believed some people were using legitimate companies to hide dishonest activities." Adoma looked through the pages. "Do you have proof?" "I have pieces. Pieces are not enough." "I know." She looked up. "Then why are you showing me this?" Min-jae was quiet for a moment. "Because I believe your brother deserved someone who would finish his work." That answer surprised her. She expected something about power or revenge, not respect for Kwesi. "Did you respect him?" Min-jae looked down at the table. "Yes." "Why?" "Because he was not afraid to ask difficult questions." Adoma remembered her brother. That sounded exactly like him. She leaned back. "Fine, we work together." Min-jae looked at her. "That was easier than expected. Do not get excited." "I was not. You looked like you were." "I have learned that your face becomes angry when you think someone is happy." Adoma stared at him. Then she laughed. A real laugh. It surprised both of them. She covered her mouth quickly. "I cannot believe you made a joke." "I did not." "You did." "I was making an observation." "That was a joke." Min-jae looked confused. Adoma shook her head. "You are strange." "I hear that often." "From people who know you?" "No." "Then from who?" "Mostly you." For a few seconds, they simply looked at each other. The moment was small, but it was the first time they felt like two ordinary people having a conversation. Then, Min-jae placed another folder on the table. "This is where we start." Adoma opened it. Inside were photographs and information about several people connected to Chairman Choi. One person caught her attention, a former employee named Park Sung-ho. According to the records, he worked for one of Choi's companies before suddenly leaving. Why is he important? Because he tried to speak about what he saw, and he disappeared from public life. Adoma looked at him. "Disappeared? Not like your brother." She noticed the seriousness in his voice. "Then what happened?" "He became afraid." Adoma closed the folder. Fear is becoming a common theme here. Min-jae did not respond, because he knew she was right. Over the next several days, Adoma and Min-jae followed every possible lead. They visited old workplaces connected to Kwesi's investigation. They spoke with people who knew him. They searched through public records. The work was slow. Sometimes they found nothing. Sometimes they found something that created even more questions. Adoma noticed Min-jae was different during these investigations. He was patient. He listened carefully. He remembered small details. One afternoon, they visited a small neighborhood shop where Kwesi had interviewed someone. The elderly owner recognized his name immediately. "Your brother was a kind man." Adoma smiled sadly. "He was." The owner looked toward Min-jae. "You brought him here?" Min-jae nodded. The old man sighed. "I was surprised. I thought people like you only cared about important people." Adoma looked at Min-jae. He did not defend himself. He simply accepted the comment. Outside the shop, Adoma walked beside him. You come here often? No. Then why did he know you? Min-jae paused. My father owned businesses in this area many years ago. Adoma noticed his expression change. You do not like talking about your family. No. Why? Because not every memory deserves to be repeated. The answer was simple, but it carried sadness. Adoma did not push further. For the first time, she understood that Min-jae also carried things he did not talk about. Later that evening, they stopped near a small street food stand. Adoma looked at the food. I have a question. What? Do you always look this serious when you eat? Min-jae looked at her. I am eating. I know. Then why ask? Because you look like you are solving a complicated problem instead of having dinner. He looked down at his food. Maybe I am thinking. About what? Whether you complain this much with everyone. Adoma smiled. Only with people who need improvement. The person running the food stand laughed. Min-jae looked surprised. What? They laughed. Yes. Why? Because you are funny. I was not trying to be. That makes it funnier. Min-jae shook his head slightly. Adoma noticed something. He was not used to simple moments. A normal conversation, a small joke, a meal without people trying to impress him. She wondered how long it had been since he experienced something ordinary. But before she could say anything, her phone rang. The smile disappeared from her face. It was an unknown number. She answered. Hello? No one spoke. Then a voice said quietly, Stop searching for your brother. Adoma stood still. Who are you? You already know this is dangerous. The call ended. Min-jae noticed her expression. What happened? Adoma looked at him. They found me again. His face changed immediately. Did they threaten you? Yes. Did they say anything else? She repeated the message. Min-jae became quiet. Too quiet. Adoma noticed. You know something. I know they are getting nervous. That is not an answer. It means we are close. Adoma looked around the street. For the first time, she realized something. She was no longer investigating alone. Someone was watching her. Someone was afraid of what she might discover. And someone like Kang Min-jae believed she was close to finding the truth. But the more time she spent with him, the harder it became to understand him. He was not the person she expected. He was still dangerous. He still had secrets. But he was also the person standing beside her when everyone else told her to stop. And that confused her more than anything. Because trusting Kang Min-jae was the one thing she promised herself she would never do. The next few days became a strange routine for Adoma. Every morning, she woke up with the same thought. Find the truth. Every night, she went to sleep with more questions than answers. But something had changed. She was no longer searching alone. Kang Min-jae was now part of the investigation. Adoma still did not completely trust him. She reminded herself of that every time they met. She reminded herself when he helped her find information. She reminded herself when he protected her from people who wanted her to stop asking questions. She reminded herself because the more she saw the person behind the rumors, the easier it became to forget the rumors, and that bothered her. One afternoon, Adoma and Min-jae visited a small office where Kwesi had collected some of his research. The building was old and quiet. Nothing about the place looked important. That was exactly why Kwesi had liked it. He believed important truths were often hidden in ordinary places. Adoma searched through old files while Min-jae examined documents from a different shelf. Your brother was organized, Min-jae said. Adoma smiled slightly. That is a polite way of saying he was a little obsessed. Min-jae looked at her. Obsessed? Yes. If he started researching something, he forgot everything else. Even eating? Especially eating. A small smile appeared on her face. One time, I called him because I wanted to know if he had eaten lunch. He told me he was too busy. And? I asked him what he was busy doing. Min-jae waited. He said he was researching an article about people who forget important things. Min-jae looked confused. And you told him? I told him he was proving his own article. For a moment, Min-jae smiled. A real smile. Not the small expression that disappeared quickly. Adoma noticed. You should do that more often. What? Smile. His expression changed. I smile. No, you do not. I just did. That was an accident. Min-jae looked away. Adoma laughed softly. It was strange. She had expected every moment with him to feel tense. Instead, sometimes she forgot they were surrounded by secrets and danger. Then she found something. A small piece of paper hidden inside an old file. Her smile disappeared. What is this? Min-jae walked closer. The paper contained a list of names. Some were crossed out. Some had notes beside them. Adoma recognized one name immediately, Chairman Choi Dae-sung. But another name caught her attention, Kang Min-jae. She looked at him. You were on this list. Min-jae became quiet. Yes. Why? I do not know. Adoma studied his face. She expected him to explain quickly. He did not. That made her more suspicious. You really do not know. I know my family had connections with many people. That is not an answer. It is the truth. Adoma folded the paper. This is why I have trouble believing you. I know. You keep saying that, because it is true. She looked frustrated. Do you ever get tired of being calm? Min-jae thought for a moment. Yes. The answer surprised her. When? When I am alone. The simple response made her quiet. She looked at him carefully. For a second, she saw something beneath his controlled personality. A person who was tired. A person who had been carrying too much for too long. But before she could say anything, footsteps approached. They both turned. A man stood near the entrance. Adoma recognized him from her research. Park Sung-ho, the former employee connected to Chairman Choi. You should not be here, he said. Adoma stepped forward. Mr. Park? The man looked nervous. You need to leave. We only want answers. No. His voice became urgent. You do not understand. Adoma noticed his hands shaking. What happened to my brother? The man looked at her. For a moment, she thought he would answer. Then fear appeared on his face. Your brother was trying to warn people. About what? Park Sung-ho looked at Min-jae. Then back at Adoma. About someone who wanted to control everything. Before Adoma could ask another question, the man walked away. She wanted to follow him. Min-jae stopped her. Wait. Why? Because he was afraid. So? Afraid people make mistakes. Adoma looked at him. And you think we should just let him leave? No. Min-jae looked toward the door. We need to understand why he is afraid. That night, Adoma could not stop thinking about Park Sung-ho's words. Your brother was trying to warn people. Not himself. Not his own safety. People. That sounded like Kwesi. He always cared about others first. The next morning, Adoma received a message. It was from an unknown number. A location. Nothing else. She showed it to Min-jae. Do you know who sent this? No. Should we go? No. She looked at him. That was fast. It could be a trap. Everything is a trap with you. Because you are surrounded by people who want you to stop. Adoma sighed. I cannot spend my entire life avoiding danger. No. Min-jae looked at her. But you also cannot walk directly into it. She crossed her arms. You sound like my brother. The words came out before she could stop them. Min-jae noticed. Adoma looked away. I did not mean, you miss him. It was not a question. Her eyes became softer. Every day, the silence between them changed. Min-jae understood that feeling. Losing someone. Living with unfinished conversations. Carrying memories that never got a proper goodbye. My family also left me with unanswered questions, he said. Adoma looked at him. She had never heard him talk about his family before. What happened? Min-jae hesitated. Then he answered. I learned early that power attracts people who want to use it. Adoma waited. But I also learned that not everyone around you is there because they care. His voice became quieter. Sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you. Adoma did not know what to say. For once, she did not see Kang Min-jae as the powerful man everyone feared. She saw someone who had been disappointed by people he trusted. Someone who built walls because he believed walls were safer than being hurt. The moment ended when his phone rang. He answered. His expression changed. What happened? Adoma watched him carefully. A few seconds later, he ended the call. That location, what about it? Someone was there. And they found one of your brother's hidden files. Her heart jumped. Where? Min-jae looked at her. At a place connected to Chairman Choi. Adoma grabbed her coat. We are going. Adoma. She stopped. What? This could be dangerous. She looked at him. I know. You are afraid. She was quiet. Then she nodded. Yes. Min-jae seemed surprised by her honesty. But being afraid does not mean I stop. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded. Let's go. As they left together, neither of them noticed the person watching from across the street. A person holding a phone. A person sending a message. They found the file. Within minutes, the information reached Chairman Choi. He read the message and placed the phone down. For months, Adoma Mensah had been searching for answers. Now she was getting close. Too close. And he knew exactly what he needed to do. He needed to make her stop. But he did not know one thing. Adoma had already lost the fear that brought her to Seoul. Because now, she was no longer fighting only for her brother. She was fighting for everyone whose voice had been ignored. And she was not going to walk away. The drive to the location was quiet. Adoma sat in the passenger seat, looking out at the streets of Seoul passing by. She noticed something about Kang Min-jae. He was always calm, too calm. Even when there was danger, even when things were uncertain, he acted like he had already considered every possible outcome. It annoyed her. It also made her curious. Do you ever panic? She asked. Min-jae kept his eyes on the road. Yes. She looked surprised. When I know someone I care about might get hurt. The answer was so simple that she did not know how to respond. She expected something complicated. Something cold. Instead, he gave a human answer. Adoma looked away. She did not want him to notice that his words affected her. After a moment, she asked another question. Why do people fear you so much? Min-jae was quiet. You already know what people say. I asked what you think. The road became quieter as they moved away from the crowded parts of the city. Finally, he spoke. People usually remember the things that make them afraid, and forget the things that make you human? He glanced at her. Something like that. Adoma looked at him carefully. Do you think you are a good person? The question was direct. Most people would avoid answering. Min-jae did not. No. She was surprised. That was fast. I have made choices I regret. Everyone has. Not everyone's choices affect many people. Adoma became quiet. For the first time, she heard honesty without excuses. He was not trying to convince her that he was perfect. He was admitting that he was not. When they arrived, they found an old storage building connected to one of Chairman Choi's former businesses. The place looked abandoned. The paint on the walls had faded. The sign outside was damaged. Nobody would guess that something important could be hidden there. Min-jae checked the area before they entered. Adoma noticed. You do that every time. Do what? Look around before you move. It keeps people safe. You always think about danger. because danger does not always announce itself. She looked at him. That sounds exhausting. It is. The answer was quiet. For a moment, Adama felt sorry for him. Then she remembered who he was, or at least who she believed he was. She reminded herself to be careful. Inside the building, they searched through old rooms. Dust covered empty shelves. Old papers were scattered across the floor. Adama looked around. Why would Kwesi hide something here? Because nobody would think to look. That sounds like him. You say that often. What? That sounds like your brother. Adama smiled slightly. He was good at finding places people ignored. She walked toward a small office at the back. Something caught her attention. A mark on the wall. She touched it carefully. Min-jae. He walked over. What is it? My brother used a symbol like this in his notes. They searched around the wall until they found a loose wooden panel. Behind it was a small container. Adama's heart started beating faster. She opened it carefully. Inside was a flash drive. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. This was what they had been looking for. The missing piece. Adama held it tightly. My brother was here. Min-jae watched her. She was not excited. She looked emotional. Because finding the evidence also meant remembering what it represented. A person she loved had been here. A person who never came home. We need to check what is inside, Min-jae said gently. Adama nodded. They returned to his office to examine the files. The flash drive contained videos, documents, and recordings. Some were connected to Chairman Choi. Others mentioned several people who had helped him hide information. Adama listened carefully. Then she heard her brother's voice. She froze. Wait. Min-jae stopped the recording. Adama looked at the screen. Play it again. The audio started. Kwesi's voice filled the room. If someone finds this recording, it means I could not finish this myself. Adama covered her mouth. Hearing him again after so long felt painful, but she forced herself to continue listening. I need whoever finds this to understand one thing. The truth is not about destroying people. It is about protecting those who have no power to protect themselves. Adama closed her eyes. That was her brother, always thinking about others. The recording continued. Chairman Choi is not working alone, but the person most people suspect may not be the person responsible. The recording ended. Adama opened her eyes. She immediately looked at Min-jae. You. He understood. Yes. Your brother was talking about you. Maybe. You knew. I suspected. Adama stood. You suspected and said nothing. Min-jae remained still. I did not know what your brother discovered. But you knew people thought you were involved. Yes. Why? He looked at the recording. Because sometimes the truth is hidden behind the easiest person to blame. Adama wanted to argue, but she stopped. Because part of her knew he was right. The world already had a story about Kang Min-jae. A powerful man. A dangerous man. A person people could blame. But she still had questions. Later that evening, they sat outside a small restaurant. Neither of them talked much. The discovery had changed something. Adama looked at the city lights. When I came here, I thought I knew who the bad person was. Min-jae looked at her, and now, she sighed. Now I know I was wrong about some things. He looked away. That does not mean I trust you. I know. She smiled slightly. You really like saying that. It is usually accurate. She laughed softly. You are impossible. I have heard that before. From me? Mostly. This time, they both smiled. It was a small moment, but it mattered. Because trust did not appear suddenly. It was built through small choices. And Min-jae was starting to understand something. Adama did not care about his influence. She did not care about his reputation. She cared about whether his actions matched his words. The next morning, Adoma decided to visit someone connected to Kwesi's research. A former employee named Park Sung-ho had agreed to speak again. This time, he promised to tell them everything. But when they arrived, they found his office empty. His phone was left behind. His notes were scattered. Adoma looked around. He knew we were coming. Min-jae examined the room. No, she looked at him. Then what? He wanted us to find this. On the desk was a small envelope. Inside was a photograph. Adoma picked it up. Her face changed. The picture showed two children, a young girl and a boy. Both were Ghanaian. Both looked frightened. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message. They saw what happened. Protect them. Adoma looked at Min-jae. Who are they? Min-jae stared at the picture. I do not know. But something in his expression told her this was important. Very important. Because whoever these children were, they were connected to the truth. And finding them might finally reveal what happened to Kwesi. Adoma held the photograph carefully. We need to find them. Min-jae nodded. We will. She looked at him. This time, she noticed something different. He did not say it like a person giving an order. He said it like a promise. And for the first time since arriving in Seoul, Adoma believed that maybe she was not fighting alone. Adoma looked at the photograph again. The two children in the picture looked young. Too young to be carrying the weight of whatever secret they had seen. The girl had a gentle expression, but her eyes showed that she had experienced things children should never have to experience. The boy stood beside her, with a serious look on his face, as if he was trying to protect his sister, even though he was still a child himself. Adoma touched the picture carefully. Why would Kwesi involve children? Min-jae looked at the photograph. He would not have done it without a reason. That is what worries me. She placed the picture on the table. Children should not be connected to dangerous situations. Min-jae nodded. That is why we need to find them first. Adoma looked at him, before anyone else does. He understood immediately. Someone else was searching for the children too. The next few days were spent trying to identify them. The photograph had very little information. No address, no phone number, no names. Only the message written by Kwesi. Protect them. Adoma studied the picture for hours. She noticed small details. The girl wore a bracelet with a tiny symbol. The boy held a book with a faded cover. They were standing near a building in the background. A building Adoma recognized. She grabbed her notebook. Wait. Min-jae looked up. What? She pointed at the picture. This place. He walked closer. You know it? I have seen it before. She opened Kwesi's notes and searched through the pages. There. She pointed at a drawing. Her brother had sketched the same building. Min-jae looked at the page. Your brother knew where they were. Yes. But why did he not write their names? Adoma became quiet. Because she knew her brother. Kwesi was careful. If he avoided writing something down, there was a reason. He was protecting them. Min-jae nodded. Then we need to be careful too. Adoma looked at him. You are worried. Yes. She raised an eyebrow. You admitted it again. I did. That is surprising. Why? Because the person everyone describes as impossible to scare keeps admitting he is worried. Min-jae looked at her. Being worried means you understand what matters. The answer stayed with her, because it sounded different from the man she first met. The man at the charity event seemed like someone who believed control solved everything. This version of Min-jae was different. He understood that some things could not be controlled. Some things had to be protected. After searching through Kwesi's notes, they discovered the location of the building. It was an old community center in Seoul where many international families had once lived. When they arrived, Adoma felt nervous. She did not know what she would find. She did not know if the children would trust her. She did not know if she would find answers about her brother. The building was quiet. A woman working there looked surprised when Adoma mentioned the names. Ama and Kojo. Adoma immediately became alert. You know them? The woman nodded. They used to come here. Where are they now? The woman hesitated. They moved. Do you know where? The woman looked at Min-jae, then back at Adoma. I do not want trouble. Adoma softened her voice. We are not here to cause trouble. She showed her the photograph. The woman looked at it. Her expression changed. You knew their parents? Adoma shook her head. No, but my brother knew them. The woman became quiet. Kwesi. Adoma froze. You knew my brother? The woman nodded slowly. He was a kind man. Hearing those words again brought a painful feeling to Adoma. Everyone who knew Kwesi described him the same way. Kind, patient, always helping. She swallowed. Please, we need to find the children. The woman looked uncertain. Then she wrote something on a piece of paper. Someone has been asking about them. Adoma's heart sank. Who? I do not know. Did they threaten you? The woman shook her head. They only asked questions. Min-jae looked serious. That is still a warning. The woman handed the paper to Adoma. It was an address. They are staying with an older relative. Adoma thanked her. Before leaving, she stopped. Did my brother say anything about them? The woman smiled sadly. He said they reminded him why he kept searching. Adoma looked down. Her eyes became emotional. That was exactly something Kwesi would say. Outside, Min-jae noticed her silence. You miss him. Adoma nodded. Some days it feels like he is still going to call me. She looked at the street. Then I remember he is not. Min-jae did not try to give advice. He simply stood beside her. And somehow, that helped more. They arrived at the address later that afternoon. Adoma knocked on the door. A few seconds passed. Then a small voice asked, Who is it? Adoma lowered herself slightly. My name is Adoma. Silence. We are looking for Ama and Kojo. The door opened slightly. A young girl looked through the gap. Her eyes widened when she saw Adoma. Are you from Ghana? Adoma smiled. Yes. The girl looked surprised. She opened the door a little more. Behind her stood a boy, watching carefully. He looked at Min-jae and immediately became cautious. Who is he? Adoma looked back. This is Kang Min-jae. The boy frowned. I know that name. Adoma noticed the concern on his face. She quickly spoke. He is helping us. The boy did not look convinced. Min-jae noticed. Instead of stepping forward, he stayed where he was. That small action surprised Adoma. He was giving the child space. The girl looked at Adoma. Are you the person who knew Kwesi? Adoma's expression changed. How do you know my brother? The girl looked down. He helped us. The words hit Adoma deeply. She entered carefully. The children sat across from them. Their names were Ama Nyamekye and Kojo Mensa. Ama explained that their parents had known Kwesi when he was working in Ghana. After their parents passed away, Kwesi stayed in contact with them and helped their family move to safety. He told us not to trust everyone, Ama said quietly. Ama looked at her. What did he tell you? Ama looked at Kojo. The boy hesitated. Then he reached into a small bag and pulled out an old notebook. Adoma recognized it immediately. Her heart jumped. That was my brother's. Kojo nodded. He gave it to us before he disappeared. Adoma carefully opened it. Inside were drawings, names and notes. But one page had been folded. She opened it. There was a message from Kwesi. If anything happens to me, protect these children. They know the truth. Adoma felt tears forming. Her brother had known something might happen. He had prepared for it. She closed the notebook. Ama looked at her. Did something happen to him? Adoma struggled to answer. She did not want to scare them. He is not here anymore. Ama looked down. We knew. The sadness in her voice affected Adoma. She moved closer. I am sorry. Amma nodded. He helped us when nobody else did. Adoma reached for her hand. Then I promise we will find out what happened. Kojo looked at Min-jae. Are you really helping her? Min-jae looked at the boy. Yes. Why? The question was simple, but it made Min-jae pause, because he had never been asked that before. Finally he answered, because your sister and you deserve to be safe. Kojo studied him, then nodded. It was a small moment, but Adoma noticed it. Children could see things adults ignored. They could tell when someone was pretending. And Kojo seemed to believe him. That evening, they reviewed the notebook together. The children revealed something important. Before Kwesi disappeared, he discovered that Chairman Choi had been searching for a hidden file. A file that contained evidence of everything. Where is the file? Adoma asked. Amma looked nervous. We do not know. Kojo pointed at the notebook. But Kwesi said someone would know where to find it. Who? The children looked at each other. Then Amma answered. Kang Min-jae. The room became quiet. Adoma slowly turned toward him. Min-jae looked surprised. Me? Amma nodded. Kwesi said you were the only person who could decide what happened next. Adoma stared at Min-jae. More questions appeared. More secrets. More uncertainty. But one thing was clear. Her brother trusted Kang Min-jae. And now she had to understand why. Adoma could not stop thinking about Amma's words. Kang Min-jae is the person who could decide what happens next. The sentence followed her everywhere. While she helped Amma and Kojo prepare dinner, while she reviewed Kwesi's notes, and even when she tried to sleep, the same question returned. Why did her brother trust him? She looked across the room at Min-jae. He was sitting quietly, reading through the notebook Kwesi left behind. Adoma watched him carefully. She had spent days trying to understand him. Every time she thought she had figured him out, something new appeared. A secret. A hidden connection. Another question. Finally, she walked toward him. We need to talk. Min-jae looked up. I know. Good. The children were in the next room, so Adoma lowered her voice. My brother trusted you. Min-jae said nothing. Why? He closed the notebook. Because he believed I could help. That is not enough. I know. Stop saying that. A small silence filled the room. Adoma looked frustrated. You knew he was investigating Chairman Choi. You knew he was in danger. You had information I did not have. Min-jae looked down. Yes. And you still kept it from me. I was trying to protect you. Adoma shook her head. That is what everyone says when they hide the truth. Her words hurt him, because he knew they were true. I was wrong. She did not expect that answer. You admit it? Yes. Why? Because protecting someone does not mean deciding what they are allowed to know. Adoma became quiet. For the first time, Min-jae was not defending himself. He was accepting responsibility, but she was still hurt. You should have told me. I should have. The honesty made her anger less simple. It was easier to hate someone who refused to admit mistakes. It was harder when they admitted them. Min-jae explained that Kwesi had discovered Chairman Choi was searching for evidence that could expose several powerful people. Kwesi asked Min-jae for help because he believed Min-jae had access to information others could not reach. But why you? Adoma asked. Min-jae looked at the floor. Because my family was once connected to Chairman Choi. The answer surprised her. What does that mean? My father worked with him many years ago. Adoma waited. But later, my father discovered what kind of person he was. What happened? Min-jae became quiet. My father tried to leave, and he lost everything. Adoma understood. Min-jae had not become powerful because he wanted attention. He had grown up around people who believed power was the only protection. But she still had one question. Did you help my brother? Yes. Did you save him? The silence answered before he did. No. Adoma looked away. That was the truth she was afraid of hearing. Min-jae continued. I tried. But you failed. Yes. The room became quiet. Adoma felt anger, sadness, and disappointment all at once. She wanted to blame him. She wanted someone to blame, but she also saw the regret in his eyes, and that made everything harder. The next morning, Adoma decided she needed space. She took Ama and Kojo to a nearby park, while Min-jae stayed behind to organize the evidence. The children noticed her mood. Ama walked beside her. Are you angry with him? Adoma looked surprised. You can tell? Ama nodded. Adults think children do not notice things. Adoma smiled slightly. Sometimes children notice too much. Ama looked ahead. Mr. Kang looks lonely. The comment surprised Adoma. Lonely? Yes. Why do you think that? Because people are always around him. But he still looks alone. Adoma thought about that. It was true. Min-jae was always surrounded by people. Yet he seemed like someone who had spent years standing by himself. Meanwhile, Kojo walked beside them holding a small toy. Meanwhile, Kwesi trusted him. Adoma looked at him. You believe that? Kojo nodded. My brother said bad people can sometimes make good choices. The words stayed with her, because that was exactly what she was struggling to understand. Later that day, they returned and found Min-jae waiting. He had discovered new information. Chairman Choi knows about the children. Adoma immediately became serious. How? Someone inside his organization told him. Ama and Kojo became nervous. Min-jae noticed. We need to move them somewhere safer. Adoma looked at him. And this time you tell me everything. I will. The simple answer surprised her. They moved the children to a safer location while continuing the investigation. As they worked together, Adoma noticed Min-jae changing. He listened more. He explained his decisions. He no longer acted like he had to carry everything alone. But Chairman Choi was not giving up. He knew the evidence was close. One evening, he made his move. Ama and Kojo were followed while returning from school. Adoma noticed the danger immediately. She grabbed their hands and moved them away from the crowd. Min-jae arrived moments later, but instead of ordering everyone around, he asked Adoma what she needed. That small change meant everything. Together, they got the children to safety. Afterward, Adoma looked at him. You changed. Min-jae looked confused. How? Before, you would have tried to control everything. And now? Now you asked for help. He looked at the children. Maybe I finally understand that protecting people does not mean standing above them. Adoma smiled softly. That was the first time she believed he truly wanted to change. Their investigation finally uncovered the location of the hidden file. It was stored in an old account connected to Chairman Choi. The evidence inside revealed everything. The lies, the manipulation, the reason Kwesi disappeared. Chairman Choi had tried to stop Kwesi because he feared the truth would destroy everything he built. But there was still one problem. They needed to release the evidence safely. Chairman Choi used his influence to attack their reputation. News reports claimed Min-jae was responsible for the corruption. People believed the rumors because they were easier to accept than the truth. Adoma knew they needed to act quickly. She prepared her investigation. She gathered documents. She recorded statements. She protected Ama and Kojo's voices. Finally, the truth was released. The evidence showed Chairman Choi's actions and exposed the people who helped him hide them. The world learned that Kwesi had not disappeared because of a mistake. He had disappeared because he searched for the truth. Adoma listened to her brother's final recording again. This time, she did not only hear sadness. She heard hope. Months later, life in Seoul was different. Ama and Kojo had a safe home. They returned to school and started building a normal life. Adoma continued working as a journalist. She told stories about people whose voices were ignored. Kang Min-jae also changed. He stepped away from the parts of his life that caused harm. He focused on rebuilding trust. One afternoon, Adoma met him at the same kind of small food stand where they once shared a quiet meal. She smiled. "I still cannot believe our first meeting ended with me hitting you." Min-jae looked amused. "It was memorable. That is one way to describe it. You warned me." "I did. You told me exactly what you thought." Adoma smiled. "Someone had to." Min-jae looked at her. "And I needed someone like that." She became quiet. Their story had started with anger and misunderstanding, but it became something different. Two people from different countries. Two people carrying pain. Two people who learned that changing was possible. Adoma did not save Min-jae by fixing his life. Min-jae did not save Adoma by removing her pain. They simply helped each other become stronger. And the woman who once shocked Seoul by standing up to its most feared man became the person who reminded him that a person's past does not have to decide their future.